the higher self message is that you should be so proud of yourself for how deeply you have met yourself. You should be so proud that you have taken a look at the shadow parts of you, the parts that you once judged, abandoned, and shamed. You've brought them to light. You are working with them now. You have a full-on relationship with yourself that is so deep, and you should be so proud of that. And it's okay if right now your outer relationships aren't necessarily reflecting how deeply you've met yourself. That conflict in those relationships that maybe you're not able to resolve or maybe you're not able to heal from is a sign that that person has not met themselves as deeply as you've met yourself. And it's up to you as to whether or not you keep that relationship in your life. But know that the more you're able to let go of those relationships where you're not able to go as deep, the more room and space you make for people who will meet you that deeply, for people who are doing that work on themselves, because you are deserving of community that can support you. And you are not meant to be alone in this experience. You are not meant to be the caretaker of everybody else in your life, but nobody else can meet you that deeply. Nobody else can hold you. You are here as a human on earth to establish deep connection with other humans. And deep healing comes not only when we release shame towards ourselves, but when we share parts of ourselves that we were once ashamed of with another human, and we're also met with that love and compassion. Hi, my loves. Welcome back to my channel and welcome back to my podcast if you're listening on there. For those of you who are new here, my name is Michaela. I'm a hypnotherapist and spiritual mentor. And right now I'm really passionate about sharing what is currently going on in my personal healing and awakening journey to hopefully help you feel a little bit less alone with some of the things that you're navigating and to connect to your higher self more. This is a message that came through from my higher self about certain relationship issues that I was navigating, and these are relationships with friends, romantic relationships, and with people that I'm not even really close with. This same dynamic was coming up over and over again, and this insight that I had really helps me to navigate these dynamics with more compassion for myself, more compassion for others, and to really kind of let go of certain conversations and friendships and attachments that were no longer serving me. Take what resonates, leave what doesn't. Really trust yourself over my message, but know that if you came across this video and you feel really called to watch it, there might be a message in here for you that would help you to navigate a certain dynamic or a relationship in your own life. So the message that came through was about what it really means to be somebody who has met yourself so deeply and how difficult it can be to connect to other people who have not met themselves as deeply. We often hear people can only meet you as deeply as you've met yourself, but we don't actually know what does that really mean to meet yourself deeply. To me, that means that you have really dove into the depths of all parts of you. And it doesn't mean that you are fully healed or that you've done all the shadow work, but it really does mean that you've taken a look at certain parts of yourself that you once abandoned, judged, or shamed, and you've brought those parts to light and you're starting to see them more clearly. You're starting to recognize that everything that you've ever done, every word that you've ever said, every version of yourself you've ever been, you actually had a really good reason behind showing up that way in your life. Whether or not that's something you would continue to choose, that is different from your level of understanding around it, the level of understanding that you were literally doing the very best that you could at the time. You might not continue to act that way or continue to choose that path, but you can also bring yourself understanding in those moments. Taking a look at something that you were really embarrassed about in your childhood, a way that you showed up, something that happened to you that you didn't have control over, and looking at the way that you judged yourself at that time, looking at the way that you abandoned or rejected yourself at that time, and really bringing that part to light and seeing yourself for who you truly are. Not labeling yourself or judging yourself as bad or wrong or shameful because of what you did, but understanding, like I said, that you had a reason for doing it and bringing yourself the love, compassion, and understanding that you needed at that time in order to process those emotions and fully let go of that situation and no longer hold on to judgment or resentment within you towards yourself. And It is not easy to do that work. So that's part of the message that I want to give to you, is that if you have met yourself this deeply, you should be so proud of yourself. It is much easier in the short term to shove these parts of you away, pretend that it never happened, and really avoid doing this deeper work, because this deeper work requires you to have the capacity to feel really intense emotions. And so if you are someone who is currently doing this, even if you're considering doing this, right, that is a sign of your strength. That is a sign that you are on a pursuit of living a life that is really truthful and in harmony and in alignment, and that you're not just trying to bypass all of those negative and dark aspects of yourself, but you're really willing to meet yourself at those deeper levels and find more wholeness within. What that allows you to do is to no longer live life on the surface level and to no longer have relationships on the surface level. What does that look like in relationships? It means that because you understand yourself very deeply and you are no longer judging those parts of yourself, you're less likely to judge another person right off the bat. You're less likely to shut down to another person because you're not shutting down those parts of yourself. Your heart is more open and you're more willing to go deep with the people in your life. You're more willing to hold your own perspective, hold your own feelings, to know that how you feel is valid, because again, you're not abandoning, rejecting, or judging any part of yourself, so that when you have conflict in relationships and a part of you needs to be held and seen and validated, you're doing that for yourself, and therefore you're also able to do that for the other person in the relationship. If you have done this, if you are doing this, you are doing an amazing job and you are on the right track. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that the people in your life, your friends, your acquaintances, the people that you even just come in contact with within your business or work, have met themselves this deeply. I am inclined to say that I feel like people who have met themselves this deeply are rare, but that is maybe only because I have just started to meet myself this deeply within the past year, that my reality is still kind of shifting to reflect that. So what this has done is it has really challenged me within certain relationships and dynamics in my life to really be able to hold that higher consciousness and that higher perspective, even if that person is not able to do the same thing for me. And I'm not saying to be this like people pleaser who lets people walk all over you because you understand why they do the things that they do and you have all of this empathy and compassion for them. It's not about that. It's about being able to hold the empathy and compassion for them, but hold that empathy and compassion for yourself a little bit more so that you can protect yourself from those situations and have really strong boundaries and decide, do I want to have relationships in my life where I cannot go so deep with them as I can with myself? Do I want to have relationships in my life where when I share something vulnerably and openly, this person isn't able to zoom out of their own perspective and have compassion for me, even if our opinions differ? I personally am not wanting to create a lot of space in my life to have these relationships with people who are not able to see me through the eyes of compassion. When you have conflict, because conflict is inevitable, our relationships are actually here to bring up those shadow parts of us so that we can heal them and see them in the light, and actually this human experience is about relationships with other humans. We're not here to do it all alone. So one of the most healing things is when we have a relationship with another person who can see us in that light as well. And then we grow closer together and we're able to actually trust other people because of this. So I want you to know that you are deserving of relationships like that. And those relationships are possible. I'm experiencing them now. I'm experiencing relationships that are the opposite of that as well. But those relationships are really far and few between right now for me. And the majority of my relationships since doing this work on myself have been reflective of that work and of my ability to understand my shadows. And therefore, I'm attracting people who can also understand my shadows and we can heal together. So what does that really look like in a relationship? Being able to meet each other deeply comes with the understanding that multiple truths can exist at the same time, and that your truth is valid And somebody else's truth being valid doesn't take away from your truth. It's like this win-win scenario where you're able to hold each other in both of your own sides without it taking away from your own experience. So I feel like I want to dive into that a little bit further with a personal example in my life. I recently had a conversation with a very dear friend of mine that was not an easy conversation by any means. I was experiencing jealousy and comparison, not just with her, but with other people in her life. And I, for a while, didn't bring that to light because I was still navigating it within myself. I didn't share that with her. But what I realized I had done over this past year of feeling that way is that instead of stuffing it down and telling myself that I was not right for feeling that way and that I should be ashamed of myself for feeling that, I actually brought those parts of me to light and I talked to them. And I asked them, why are you feeling this way? What is it that you're wanting me to know? What is it? Is there an action that you're wanting me to take that would help me to feel more expansive and aligned in my life? Is there a part of me that doesn't believe that I am worthy of these same things that my friend has? I really got curious with myself and I saw that a lot of what she was experiencing in her life was something that I really wanted to experience myself. Not identically, but there were parts of it that I was wanting to experience. And there was a part of me that was feeling like I was wrong or bad or behind in life because I hadn't experienced that yet. And so I brought these parts to light and I really worked with them and held them in what they were feeling. And I also reminded them that the reason why I feel jealous or I feel like I'm comparing myself is because there is a part of that life that I am actually meant to live and that I'm actually meant to pursue. So by working with those parts, I brought them to light and I was actually able to show up in that friendship fully authentically supportive of her and her success, even though I wasn't experiencing it myself yet. Which brings me to the conversation that I had with her where I told her that I was feeling that way. And at first it was difficult for her to understand and she felt unsafe with me because she hadn't realized that I was feeling jealous or comparing myself in any way. But I told her the reason why she didn't realize that is because I was able to see those shadow parts of myself, bring them to light, and not let them control me. And when she realized that, she was able to have compassion for that part of me without seeing me as that person who is jealous or competitive in any way. She saw that it was an old shadow part of me that I had brought to light and that I had worked with enough to be able to show up authentically in our friendship. And we actually ended up having a really healing conversation because she was willing to meet herself that deeply and understand that there are parts of her that maybe she isn't proud of, that maybe she, has in the shadows or had in the shadows before that aren't all of her, that isn't really who she is, but maybe she has thoughts like that sometimes or had thoughts like that sometimes in her life. And because she had met herself at that level, she was able to meet me at that level too. And so that's what I mean about friendships and relationships where you maybe have difficult conversations. And at first there is that feeling of fear that shows up, but because you both have met yourself deeply, you're able to find healing and deeper connection because of that. Because now I know that I don't have to show up in that relationship perfectly. I don't have to hide parts of myself from her. And I can be more my authentic self in the relationship, which opens my heart, opens her heart, and we have a deeper sense of trust with each other now. That's what it looks like to have relationships where you are both meeting each other deeply, is to be able to open up about those shadow parts, maybe have a difficult conversation, but in the end feel more heard and understood by the other person. So the higher self message there is that if you open up about a shadow part of you that you have resolved or that you're working on, and you share that with another person and they judge you for it and they tell you that you're wrong or bad for feeling that way, or they really paint a different picture of you in their mind because you have let them in on this vulnerable part of you, that is a sign that they are rejecting, judging, and abandoning parts of themselves, and it has nothing to do with you. You are allowed to have shadows. You are allowed to feel jealousy, comparison, anger, resentment, whatever it is. You're allowed to have those parts within you. But what allows them to not control you is your ability to look at them and see them and understand why they feel that way. If another person hasn't done that, it is likely that they cannot meet you as deeply as you've met yourself. And it's time to distance yourself from that relationship and know that you are deserving of relationships where you can have conflict, where you can have anger towards one another, and that you're able to have a healing conversation from that and meet each other and grow together through that conflict. So to sum it all up, the higher self message is that you should be so proud of yourself for how deeply you have met yourself. You should be so proud that you have taken a look at the shadow parts of you, the parts that you once judged, abandoned, and shamed. You've brought them to light. You are working with them now. You have a full-on relationship with yourself that is so deep, and you should be so proud of that. And it's okay if right now your outer relationships aren't necessarily reflecting how deeply you've met yourself. That conflict in those relationships that maybe you're not able to resolve or maybe you're not able to heal from is a sign that that person has not met themselves as deeply as you've met yourself. And it's up to you as to whether or not you keep that relationship in your life. But know that the more you're able to let go of those relationships where you're not able to go as deep, the more room and space you make for people who will meet you that deeply, for people who are doing that work on themselves, because you are deserving of community that can support you. And you are not meant to be alone in this experience. You are not meant to be the caretaker of everybody else in your life, but nobody else can meet you that deeply. Nobody else can hold you. You are here as a human on earth to establish deep connection with other humans. And deep healing comes not only when we release shame towards ourselves, but when we share parts of ourselves that we were once ashamed of with another human, and we're also met with that love and compassion. So know that you are deserving of that, and know that I'm proud of you for meeting yourself so deeply. And you should be so, so proud of yourself. And I love you. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for tuning into my channel. If you enjoyed this message or if you resonated, I would love to know in the comments, or you can just leave me a thumbs up to know that you're supporting my channel. It means the world to me, and I love you so much. I will see you in the next video.